Welcome to another Saturday night and taking it to the nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmie. And tonight, well, this is something that's been going on for a while. I've been wanting to connect with my brother of the Leaf and brother of media, Eric Guttormson from Cigar Dojo. And if you don't know who Cigar Dojo is, well, I don't know how you know who I am because we've been around about as long together and they have done amazing things. We're going to get into all the good things that Eric is doing for the industry and just talk current events in cigar world.
Is brought to you by Casa Cuevas Cigars. In the 19th century, Juan Cuevas, Spanish immigrant from Santander, began what was to be a family business which now spans 4 generations. Like others fortunate enough to live and work in Pinar del Rio province of Cuba, Juan commenced cultivating tobacco, turning it into a successful business. Years later, in the Ciabo Valley of the Dominican Republic, Luis Cuevas Sr., Juan Jr.'s son, carried on the family tradition of handcrafting fine cigars in the family's cigar factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas. Today, Luis Sr. is joined by his son Luis Jr. in the manufacturing and sale of premium long filler cigars. So check out Casa Cuevas Cigars at www.casacuevascigars.com and on their Instagram and Facebook channels.
Catelli Cigars is back. The past few years brought many questions and changes to the cigar industry. In the wake of all uncertainty, Catelli Cigars decided to take a break and try their hand in the retail side of cigars. With 2 shops under their belt, first Riverside Cigar Bar and now the Catelli Cigar Lounge in Vero Beach, Florida, they are now more educated in the retail and the wholesale sides of the cigar business. During this time, they received many inquiries about their cigars returning to the market. Making the difficult decision to take a break from their brand was eased knowing that when the time was right, Catelli would be back, and now they are. Catelli is excited to bring their first release, the Catelli Box Air, back to market. The Box Air, a rich box-pressed San Andreas Mexican Maduro with a Nicaraguan binder and filler, come in Box Air's 3 original sizes, Robusto, Toro, and Gordo. You can check out Catelli Cigars at catellicigars.com. And also check out their Facebook and Instagram pages. Okay, let's bring in Eric. Well, welcome to the show, Eric.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
This has been a long time putting in the works. Smoking anything tonight?
Yeah, I actually am smoking the new Arsenio from Aganorsa Leaf.
I heard really good things about that.
Yeah,
And
it's mild, it's very mild, so you prepare yourself.
that's
It's
crazy.
it's a mild cigar, but here's what I like about it. So there's a lot of times I want a mild cigar, but I still want that, Aganorsa Leaf, graham crackery, cabinet spice kind of flavor. And so you get that, but it's mild. You can smoke it in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You can smoke it like right now I'm having a Topo Chico and it's perfect.
So I'm smoking Only because you just came
Ah,
out with something
yes.
really cool, so I
Yeah.
figured I'd fire up another knuckle sandwich.
Nice. There you
Okay,
go.
had to get that out of the way.
Look at you in your gi. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it a dobak. It's a Korean. So in Taekwondo, it's a dobak. I think in karate, it's a gi, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Right.
Either way.
So either way, it's a white thing when you're working through your colored belts. So I'm almost there. I'm almost a black belt. So I can't wait to
Nice.
get that. It's an achievement that I've been working on for 30 plus years.
What is that? You got some wine going? Is it
Hmm.
was it it's not a Zinfandel, is it?
No, this is called Talix
Mm,
from Australia. It's an Australian wine. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a
okay.
blend of Shiraz and Cabernet. So it doesn't have as much of the alcohol bite to it that some of them do. So it's got a little more of the berry note coming through.
I do love wine. I if I was ever not in the cigar biz, I would probably want to be in the wine biz. I dig it. I love it's a great pairing too. It's an underrated cigar pairing.
I love pairing it. I also love reading the notes whenever I get these. Actually, when I get the wines, I had a wine club, so they always send me these little things,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
right? That tell you about it. So like this, so, but I always love reading the descriptions, right? And this one's like, going to give you your notes of mulberry, blackberry, caramel. We should steal some of these notes. we use caramel, right? Sometimes blackberry. I've never used mulberry.
You
you
know,
know,
but that is actually you're making a good point because we have this conversation all the time. Skip Martin is famous for saying that you should only describe what a cigar tastes like in tobacco terms, right? Like this tastes like Ligero from Esteli. This tastes like Seiko from Jalapa, which we say is nuts. Skip, you're nuts. You're absolutely
because
nuts.
because the average consumer may
Doesn't know
not
what those things taste
may
like.
not resonate.
Yeah.
And let's be real, when it comes to cigar reviews, I tell people that um, let's just talk about good cigar reviews of good cigars, right?
Right.
Forget about the crappy cigars, the good cigars. We we like a cigar, we're going to give it a good rating, we're going to give it a good story, and we're going to talk about good notes in it. We're a marketing arm for the company at that point. We help them reach the consumer, just like these wine guys go in and say, our red
Right.
blend is bursting with fruit flavor. Cranberry and strawberry aromas evolve into ripe mulberry flavors on the palate.
Right.
We do the same thing.
Of course. Yeah.
And because of that, people read things that we write, um, and then they don't, and they go experience for themselves. But if you sit around a shop and talk to anybody who's, you know, familiar with cigars enough, understand palates and are smoking for experience and flavor, they might talk about it. Hey, you ever smoked this one, man? I got this like really nice note of almonds in this for some reason. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. Now, but don't just look at my Stogie Press stuff or your dojo stuff or Coop's stuff. Go read it all and find the core notes. And this goes back to what I think Skip is talking about, right? I won't get into the singularity of the region and the Ligero and the Seiko, but there's more common tobacco notes like a natural tobacco sweetness, a fermented leaf aroma, a curing bond smell, right? Those things I put in. And then when you get into the normal notes, there's a pepperiness to it. You don't necessarily have to break it down into all the different peppers on the planet, but there's a certain pepperiness to it. I tasted some salt. It doesn't have to be sea salt. It doesn't have to be French sea salt. It just has to be a saltiness because what your palate's going to pick up. So I get what he's saying at that level, but not at a depth of, well, tastes like a 4 year aged Seiko minimum quality, the lower quality Seiko from Esteli and so on, Bag of Donuts farm.
Yeah, of course. Now, I kind of get what Skip's saying in some regard. Like, you do have some reviewers that will get a little crazy. Their descriptors become so obscure that it goes the opposite direction, right? Like, this tastes like a berry from the south side of France, or like, oh, nobody knows what that tastes like, right? So like, you can go too far the other way as well. So there is a balance, and you just got to find uh like you said, you got to find reviewers that you can relate to. And you know what? Those guys, they seem to like the same kind of cigars I like. And so I'm gonna read their reviews, maybe more than other ones. And if there's other reviewers out there that you don't, gee, that those guys gave that thing a 92. I thought it was terrible. Maybe, your guys, you're not on the same page for you. So you find somebody that you like, or one or two or three or four reviewers that you like, and that can help you make purchasing decisions.
And like I was saying earlier, it's sometimes when you look across the spectrum of cigar reviews on a particular cigar, there's going to be common notes. So take all the noise out of the equation. Being an engineer, that's what I do. You take all the noise out of the equation, and what's left across them is this is going to give you pepper and some earth and some caramel, sweetness, whatever. That's it, because everything else is noise and some personal thing that somebody else picked up for whatever reason. Their palate picked it up and saw it as something different than somebody
Yeah.
else.
But I think ultimately, right, like, if we as reviewers always boiled it down to those core flavors only, it would get really boring to read after
It
like
does.
eight
Yeah.
reviews, right? And isn't it like, I know you review cigars, so you know this. After you've written review after review after review, you can say to yourself, "Oh my God, like, am I just saying the same thing over and over
It
and
gets
over?" So
boring.
that's right.
It
So
gets
that's
boring
why
for
I think
me.
it is important to try to seek out. I remember we were smoking way back when the Oliva V Melanio came out, right? And when that cigar came out, my other son, Dominic, not Jordan, the producer, Jordan, but
I have a son named Dominic too.
oh, see, there we
Is it
go.
with a C or a K? Probably with a K,
C
right?
with a C. It's with a
Oh,
C.
just
Yeah.
a C. Yeah, my
Yeah.
son's with a C too. That's funny.
Yeah. But he said when he smoked that cigar, he's like, you know what? I taste tomato soup. And we all giggled at first when he said it, right? Like,
Vegetable.
we
Vegetable
kind we
notes.
kind of giggled a little bit, but it does have that sort of savory vegetal sort of note to
Mhm.
it. And that was a really good descriptor. And since then, I've told people that, and they're like, yeah, like, I get what you're saying. That savory, you know, uh kind of note. So sometimes those things really do help people get excited about a cigar. You say like, oh, this cigar has a graham crackery note. Like, for me, a graham crackery note, I know I'm probably gonna like that cigar because that's a note that I always like. So if somebody
Right. I
says,
was going to ask you, what are
yeah,
some of the notes you really like?
yeah, I love salt. I love the salt from the Corojo. If I can taste on my tongue, with the tobacco on my tongue, if I can taste a little salt there, I like that, because then for me, that kind of plays nicely with the sweetness usually of a cigar. Now it can be just too salty and I won't like that, but typically not. But I like to have a little bit of that salt note with the sweet note. Like, for me, it's kind of like Chinese food or something. Like, it's good. I like
Sweet and
those two.
sour. Yeah.
Yeah, they play off of each other. So everybody has certain notes that they like. That's one of mine. Graham crackery, cabinet spice. I love like cabinet spice type stuff. Grandma's cookie, molasses,
Yeah.
grandma's cookie
Molasses,
jar.
maple syrup
Yeah,
aromas I
yeah,
like.
yeah.
But going back to the salt is a really important one. And I don't always get the salt. Sometimes it may be hidden behind things. But what's important about that, just from the salt perspective, from a gastro perspective, That's actually really good when you pick up a salt because it's going to enhance all the other flavors. It's going to start
Yeah.
your palate salivating. It's one
Right.
of those salivation notes, I call it. And
Right.
when your palate gets wetter, you're going to taste more, right? Because
Yeah.
you got things moving around. We're going to come back around to this, but we're going to go back in history for a second. All right.
Okay.
And so if I remember correctly, you hit the stage somewhere around 2012,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
right?
correct. Mm-hmm.
We came out in we just celebrated 10 years, so 2014, roughly.
Okay.
2013, I kind of got it going, but 14 is when I
Mm-hmm.
actually really made it. So we're in our going into our 11th year. So around the same time, you came out very close to where Coop would have come out.
Yeah.
Um, and you're younger than I am by a few years. So when did you actually smoke your first cigar? Let's just start with that part of the history.
I smoked some cigars as a teenager that were, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a young adult, I smoked cigarettes for a while. And then for the longest time, when I quit smoking cigarettes, I basically swore off tobacco. That was it. I was done. For years and years and years and years. And I think it was around 2010 or 11. I think 11. We were in Las Vegas. I was with my sons, and we went into Casa Fuente, and they were gonna have a cigar. My sons were, and I was just gonna have a mojito or whatever. Um, but I was like, what the heck? I'll have a cigar with the boys. This is great. We were out there together, just the boys. We were at some sort of publishers convention at the time, and so I had a cigar, and it was fun. I picked like the cheapest cigar that they had in the humidor in Casa Fuente, and but we had a really, really good time. And I remember my boys, Jordan and Dominic were like, "Whoa, like Dad's smoking a cigar. This is crazy." And so when we got
How
back,
old how old were you there at that point?
so this is
Because you have kids now,
2011.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have 6 kids. So
Oh,
and they're
so
at the
this is huge time difference
yes,
between
right.
teenager and real cigars, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
I'm going to peg you in your late 20s,
So
maybe
so
30s.
wow, so now I'm
I mean, you're
50.
only 40, right?
I'm almost 59. So this I
Okay.
would have been like 48 or no, 46 or something, right?
Oh,
47.
wow. Wow, wow. Okay.
And so that was fun. We had a really good time, and I Jordan and Dominic were kind of getting into cigars a little bit at the time. And so they kind of knew a lot more about it than me. But when we got back to Denver, Colorado, they were like, "Hey, let's go to the cigar bar and da 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 da." And in the meantime, I was starting to kind of look into it a little bit, and I remember at that point, I had a Padron 1964 Maduro Imperial, and when I smoked that cigar, it clicked. I was like, I get this. I get what's going on here. Like it's
Now the
more,
bar got set.
yeah, it's more than just hanging out, you know, bringing smoke into your mouth and pushing it out. Like there's more to it. And I remember I smoked that cigar to the nub that night. And in typical fashion for me,
You
when
smoked it too
I
fast.
no, no,
Oh,
I
okay.
I just got so in I can't like do stuff like halfway, like once I get into something, I go crazy. And so I was like, oh man, like this is so fun. Like I got the flavors, I got the chocolate, it was a syrupy texture in my mouth, and it was just so good. And I was like, oh man, like I understood at that point. And so then, I started smoking premium cigars, and me and the boys started a website called quickcigarreviews.com.
Okay,
And
so this is hold on. So
yeah,
this is the point. Now, this is a question I had in my mind. So going into the historical part of it. So
yeah.
we're now in 2010, 11 time
11, yeah.
frame,
I think it was
11,
11. Yeah.
and you decided that you and your sons would go and create a review site
Right.
because you saw other review sites? I mean, did you follow? Well,
No,
I mean,
actually, the reason we did it, okay, so I do web stuff. I was doing web stuff for, NASCAR and some other
mhm.
big companies. And so I knew how to do that was my expertise, right? Um Doing websites. And when we did quickcigarreviews.com, we mainly did it just so that we could catalog our own, experiences. Basically kind of between each other,
Right,
It
kind of
it
your own
was
personal journal that others can see.
yeah, exactly. It was never meant to be anything more than just kind of a fun side hobby kind of a thing. But that site started to kind of get some traction and some traffic. And we thought, wow, this is cool, but we hated the name, like Quick Cigar Reviews. It wasn't very marketable and stuff. So we said, hey, let's actually, put some effort into this. And my son Jordan came up with the name Cigar Dojo. We rebuilt the site. We started taking it a little more serious. Now, when I say a little bit more seriously, like I've gone back and seen some of those reviews, and they're terrible.
You do that too, right?
Yeah,
It scares me what I was
yeah,
doing back in
yeah,
10 years ago.
yeah. They're terrible. But the site was cool, and it looked cool. The graphics were really cool. And so like some people started to notice it, like Abe DeBabna from Smoke Inn. He had me on his radio show. And that was really cool. We were like, wow, this is crazy. And about 6 months later, we started our app, Cigar Dojo app, and that's when things just blew up and took off from there. And a
Yeah,
couple years
so
later, we were doing it full time, so that's
that
how it happened.
was that was I think a mind-blowing experience. When I saw what you did, okay, I was like, yeah, yeah, this is a game changer because as opposed to all of us in the media that are writing news articles and maybe some stories and doing cigar reviews and everybody else is doing, you come out with an app that now engaged people sharing their experiences, and the monetization of that, I'm sure, became something spectacular in the sense that you can point people in directions and drive traffic to places to get cigars that you're talking about. And that has been duplicated over time, right? But you guys hit it out of the ballpark with the app.
Yeah, what was crazy about it was there at the time there was several pretty big cigar forums, like internet forums.
Like Saka had an internet
I
forum,
can't even think of the
original one.
names of them right now. But and I was a part of all of those. Um, but my expertise in the internet world was community building. So I knew how to build like communities really well. Like that's what I do. That's what I did for a lot of other big companies. So I kind of knew that going in. Like I didn't do all of this just without that was my expertise anyways. But my point of this is I never really liked the forum concept that much because it wasn't very friendly. Like for instance,
I,
you'd come on there and maybe you're a new cigar smoker or something, right? And you'd post on the forum something like, should I take the cellos off of my cigars when I buy them, right? And there would be like five, like guys that were like had been on the forum forever, and they'd say, "Why don't you just use the search feature, you moron?" That kind of a thing. And so I was always like, like I wish there was a place where new guys could come on and ask any question, even if it's dumb, and just get the answer. Like I don't want to use the search feature. I just want you to just answer my question. Just say yes or no. Like, what's
yeah,
so hard about just it's easier to type no or yes than it is to type, why don't you just use the search feature, you moron? And so when we started the dojo, that was sort of the idea, like cigar smokers, a dojo, right? That's where you go to learn the martial arts, right? And you
yes,
have a
sir.
sensei, and the sensei helps you, but you also learn from like the other people, like a red belt like you, Jimmie, and like so like all this. And so our idea was, hey, we're going to be this welcoming community. And I don't care if the question has been asked 5,000 times. I'm always going to just answer it. My answer might be wrong, but I'm just going to answer it. And then I'll see, and other people can answer the question too. And we'll just all kind of learn from each other. And so I think because of the fact that we were sort of welcoming and friendly and the timeline moved really fast, there was a lot of activity. I think it resonated with people and they were like, hey, you know what? This is like a fun place to be. It's not like I don't feel like I'm out of place, like I'm the new guy. I'm just trying to learn about cigars, but there's like these 13 or 14 dudes that are just, they've smoked for 30 years and they just don't even want to answer your questions. And to this day, I still answer every question. Like people come on dojoverse.com. That's where the app, we can talk about that later as to why it changed. But if people come on tomorrow and they say, hey, should I put my flavored cigars with my regular cigars in the humidor? Like, I just answer the question. I don't make them feel, I try not to make them feel. Yeah, and so I think that's why the dojo kind of took off, was we were like one of the few places where people could ask a stupid question and get an answer.
So should I take the cello off my cigars or not?
So I've gone back and forth on this a lot. And here's my answer now. My answer now is if you plan to keep that cigar in your humidor and eventually smoke it, I think you should take off the cello. And here's why. In an aging room, as you know, at a factory, they don't age cigars with cellos on. They age them without the cellos. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is, even though the cello is porous and it does, air and stuff does transfer.
It breathes a
it
little.
breathes, but that is still a slight boundary. And you know how we know that? Because if you keep a cigar in a cello long enough, it turns brown. Now, all that brownness is oils and flavors that could have gone into another cigar, but instead they got trapped in the cello. So my answer, now this is a long-winded answer. So my answer is, if you're planning on smoking that cigar in your humidor, I think you should take the cello off, let those flavors have a little bit more freedom to marry each other, and then you're going to have a better smoking experience. However, if you're like me and you have a ton of cigars that you're never going to smoke the rest of your life, and you're probably going to give some of these away, then keep them in the cello, because when you send them out, it is a great way to protect the cigar from damage, some little bit of damage. So that's my two-pronged answer, yes and no. Ultimately, there's no wrong answer, but that's the way I prefer to do it.
So you take the cello off if you're going to be smoking it.
Yeah.
How do you store them together? Obviously, you're not putting your Maduros next to your Connecticut's.
Here's what I do. I have one desktop humidor that I call, it's like my staging, right? These are the cigars that I'm staging. I plan on smoking these in the next couple weeks or month or so, and it's maybe holds 75, something like that. I'll put anything in there other than a flavored cigar, because at that point it's not really going to make any difference. In the long-term staging, in my cooladors and that kind of stuff, I'm a little bit more careful. In fact, I'll even leave them in the box, in their own box, but with the cellos off. The cellos are off. So like, imagine I buy a box of Perdomo 12-year aged Connecticut, right? Bourbon barrel, the 12-year aged Connecticut's, right? I open up the box, I take all the cellos off, close the box, put it in the coolador, because I feel like, those are going to age a little bit. And then as I'm ready to smoke them, I'll pull a couple out, I'll throw them into the staging one, and away I go. Now, I know that's a little nutty. I don't always follow that rule. Sometimes
that's kind of what I do too.
Okay.
It's the same process.
Yeah.
And the only thing I do is I make sure I actually have three. If you think of it, I have three staging humidors, right? I basically have my dark Maduros, my Habanos, and my Connecticut's.
That's
Only
good.
because
Yeah.
I don't want them all interplaying, and you never know. Even though you have intention to be smoking that in the next month, but there's probably more than you want in there. So I don't want them cross-pollinating. Never put my flavored cigars in the
No,
same box.
no, no. That,
In
yeah,
fact, I have my brain explodes when you get, I don't have a lot of flavored cigars, but I give them away. My son-in-law loves his flavored cigars. So whenever I get flavored cigars, if I go to an event or something and I get those, it's
right.
like, here's your birthday present, here's your
Yeah,
Christmas present. You get all the fat bottom Betties, you get
yeah,
all of the crazy Alice's, you get all of
right.
those, have fun with them. Okay. I'm not always smoking. I do smoke them once in a while. I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but
yeah,
occasionally I think of it as a dessert cigar. After smoking cigars all day, all
yeah,
week, sometimes it's like, you're sitting around on a Sunday afternoon watching a baseball game. You're like going, I'll break out a Java just for the hell
yeah.
of it. It's like,
Yeah, that's exactly me. I don't have hardly any. What I typically do is I keep them in a Ziploc bag with a Boveda in there, and then it'll be also in the cooler, but it's zipped up.
sure.
I could probably count on my hands and toes the amount of flavors. But I'm like you, like when we're at PCA and we've smoked a gazillion cigars, and you're at PCA and your palate is kind of shot. Sometimes it's great to take out a tobacco and
Yeah.
smoke that cigar because it kind of breaks through, it kind of breaks through the monotony of all the other cigars that start to just all taste the same.
It wakes up your palate too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Expect,
Yeah.
when you're like you said, you're at PCA and you're smoking cigars from 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then you start it the next day. So, sometimes I get up in the morning and I'm smoking a flavored cigar just
Yeah.
because I gotta clean something.
Right.
With that said, and all the cigars that we tend to smoke because we're reviewing them, and smoking them throughout the day, what is your go-to palate cleansing? Do you
So,
have a do you have a
that's a
regimen?
good question. So for the longest time, for me, and I wouldn't call it a palate cleanser so much as I would call it like it's like my constant. So I know exactly what it's going to taste like, so that I kind of can tell where my palate is at. So if I've been smoking a lot, sometimes. So for the longest time, I would go and I would smoke an Espinosa Habano, just the Espinosa Habano, because I had smoked so many of those. I knew I love it. It's my flavor profile, has all the things that I like about it. Um, and then I could go to that and I could say, okay, yeah, my palate's shot because I know what this cigar tastes like, and I'm not tasting that right now. Like so I need to like take a bit of a break, maybe do a mojito or something to kind of like clear it out. Nowadays, I lean a little bit more towards either the L'Orange because I just like that cigar a little bit better, or something from Terrence. I like all the Aganorsa leaf stuff. Having a you know, our Reviver is a cigar that we made with Terrence and AtlanticCigar.com. And that cigar is the perfect graham crackery cabinet spice cigar. So that's another one. Those few cigars are sort of like my what do you call that? It's like a milestone where you kind of know, right where it should
It's a
be.
benchmark.
And
It's benchmark.
yeah, exactly. That's the
Right.
best. That's a way better word for it. Benchmark.
Yeah,
That was the word I was
absolutely.
looking for. So that I do that.
So what I do is, I have various things I've learned over the years, everything from lemon water,
Hmm.
seltzer water. Obviously, when I review a cigar, I'm only drinking seltzer water. I generally try to only do one review a day. There you go. And I'm always doing it around 11 o'clock in the morning because I've already eaten breakfast. I already had my 2 cups of coffee. I have something in my stomach so I can judge strength. I think that's important. And then I have seltzer water and I review that cigar. And it's always every cigar that I review is coming out of the same environment. Nothing's different. I'm sitting here in my lounge in my house. I've got a split AC system up here. It's 76 degrees in here all the time. Okay. Unless it's like, winter time in Florida, and then I got the door open and it's maybe a little cooler, but it's fine. But what I did is I ended up reading, Nick Kutro.
No.
So Nick Kuchar is the guy that came up with the plastic molds instead of the wood molds. He wrote a book on the art of taste and science of taste and stuff, right? Applied to cigars. He interviewed a bunch of the big players in the industry, and it's a fantastic book. If you get a chance, look it up. I'll send you the link or the name of it. You can find it. If you send me your address, I'll even send it to you. You can send it back to me after you read it. Fantastic book, okay? But there's numerous throughout there. He talks of one section about how the palate works. Now, what he said, and I do this religiously now, an unsalted saltine cracker. I know, oxymoron, but you can buy unsalted saltine crackers. You take the unsalted saltine cracker, you lay it in your palate, you let it dissolve almost like a host. You just kind of swish it around, let it dissolve. And then you take like some seltzer, some good seltzer water, or you take a nice filtered water. Okay, swish it around and swallow it. It resets the palate to a pH of 7, which is balanced. At that point, you'll notice the difference. Try it someday. You'll be surprised. If you're having a day where you smoke like 3 cigars already, do that and now smoke a cigar, and you're going to be like, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Mind blowing how the palate has adjusted. Because if your palate is off, the pH goes up or down, it's going to affect this. Okay, and try not to talk about cigars when you have a bad day.
Yeah, I don't actually review cigars anymore at all.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. I just found that I wasn't as good at it as Jordan and Scotty Braband writes for us, and Chad Mormon writes for us, and those 3 guys, especially, they're just better at it than me. I mean, that isn't my area, so I leave it to those guys because now I do help. Like, I'll smoke with them and I'll give them sort of, a little bit of, hey, I'm getting this or whatever. But I let the guys that I trust their palate better handle that stuff. They're just better at it than I am. I know my limitations.
Good. So if you want, I'll actually send you the book.
Yeah.
You can send it back to me, and whenever you
that's
get
cool
a chance.
Advice. Yeah, that's cool advice.
All right. I want to take the last commercial break right here, and when we come back, let's start digging a little bit into some of the more current things going on with Cigar Dojo. Let's talk about your collaborative work that you've been doing, coming out with multiple cigars, which is another game changer, because you have done something which is spectacular, and being able to reach out to different manufacturers and create these cigars, and that helped get your name also on the map.
And today's show is brought to you by Bocock Brothers Cigars, a new and active brand founded by 2 Honduran brothers, Bryant and Douglas Bocock. The brand zeroes in on those folks that are looking for easy-to-smoke cigars inspired by unusual circumstances. Very importantly named after their very interesting and imitable last name, Bocock. Right now, Bocock Brothers is featuring their Signature Edition, made at the A.J. Fernandez factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. It features an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, a Nicaraguan Habano binder, and a Nicaraguan filler. Available in 3 popular formats, a Robusto, a Toro, and a Gordo. You can check out Bocock Brothers Cigars at www.bocockbrothers.com. And today's show is brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. Platinum Nova is a family-owned and operated premium cigar company. Only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and the family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather, to always remember him and his infinite passion for the finest cigars.
Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for that exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You can check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars, www.novacigar.com, and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels.
And today's show is brought to you by All Saints Cigars, a company founded in 2019 and headed up by industry veteran Mickey Pegg and his two friends, Martin Corboy, a successful restaurateur, and Frank Leo, an Air Force Academy graduate military veteran. As Mickey explains it, they were all sitting down talking and smoking cigars, and finally they decided that they would do this thing together. It was time. Mickey said, I decided if I'm going to work hard at it, it should be something I love. Besides, a tough day with a cigar is better than a great day doing anything else. Soon after, they began the process of launching All Saints Cigars, jokingly referring to themselves as the Holy Trinity, St. Michael, St. Martin, and St. Francis. They chose for their logo the cross of St. James, the patron saint of Nicaragua, the country where their cigars would be produced. You can check out All Saints Cigars at www.allsaintscigars.com.
All right, let's come back. Thank you for my sponsors. Without them, the show's always a little harder to do. Let's talk about another thing you did that the rest of this media missed out on somehow, me included. You launch your site 2012. You shortly thereafter start a collaboration. And the first thing you did in 2014 is you created this Cigar Dojo commemorative cigar. And that was 2014. You followed up with that with so many collaborations, culminating this year in your version of the knuckle sandwich, which is now just hitting the market, I understand, called the Strike Force. Kudos to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we were just a cigar review, if we only were media and only did cigar reviews and news and stuff, I don't know if the collaborations would have fit, but because of our community, that we have with the Dojo app and now dojoverse.com, we have this large community. We want to do stuff that's fun for them. And so Jonathan Drew, he really liked what we were doing, and we talked about doing a cigar for the community, and that was a big hit. Obviously, the Dogma was a big hit, and so after that, we just kept doing them, and we try to do, somewhere between 4, 5, 6 a year. We don't get crazy with it. We don't really do it, for the money so much as we do it for the fun, for the community, something interesting and unique, that they get to partake in, kind of participate in the process. And so, yeah, it's become something that is a big part of what we do nowadays. And yeah, Knuckle Sandwich is on pre-order now at Smoke Inn, and it'll be landing on doorsteps sometime in probably November. Yeah.
Now, so we'll just go right to the latest one, Strike Force. What is unique, if anything, about the Strike Force versus what I'm smoking today?
So it's a completely unique blend. It's probably the most unique knuckle sandwich blend that's out there. And so we worked with Hector on the blend. It's a Pennsylvania broadleaf wrapper. It's a Nicaraguan Corojo binder. It's got Dominican. It's got Nicaraguan, and it has some Mexican filler, which is really unique for those guys. So as far as the knuckle sandwich lineup goes, from start to finish, it's probably the most unique blend of all of the knuckle sandwiches. We really like it. I think people are going to dig it. It's syrupy. It's got some sweetness to it. It's got some salt with the Corojo and the binder. And the Pennsylvania broadleaf will probably is a bit striking to some folks because it isn't as crazy thick as you might imagine it to be. So it's a very approachable cigar. I think people will like it. And so yeah, it's a fun project. It took about a year to do. We started actually at the PCA last year, not April, but last year, in about a year ago to the day, probably from right now. And we've been working on it ever since. And finally got it ready. These are the stuff we do. Like we don't ever do just like a different size with a band on it, like these are typically something that's a completely new product, a new blend, and that's what makes it fun because people get to try something new and fresh.
Now, did you work with Guy also on this?
So initially, and then of course in the branding part of it, we've worked with Guy, but as far as the blend went, we mainly worked with Hector to get the blend the way we wanted it, and then of course Eric and Guy had to approve of that, so they had to like it as well. So once everybody was sort of on the same page, then that was the blend that we went with.
Now, how many of those are going to be available?
So this one's a pre-order, so we don't know that answer to that question. However many pre-orders happen, that's how many we'll produce. So there's no.
Okay.
Normally we'll make like 300 to 500 boxes of 10 or bundles of 10, and then we'll just sell those all with one retailer, one of our retail partners. This is more like the Wagashi with Steve Saka in that it's a pre-order. So however many pre-orders go, that's how many we'll produce, and that's why it won't ship until November, because we won't know that number until the pre-ordering is done, and that's Sunday the 28th. So basically a week from this Sunday.
And all of these releases that you've done over the years, these are always kind of one and dones. They're not production lines. Do you ever bring any of them back, or is it that's it?
So a few of them have come back, and a few of them have gone national. Dogma went national, so that became available at every retailer. The Camacho Imperial Stout Barrel Aged became national for a couple of years. The Bonsai is still for sale at Smoker Friendly's online retailer, which is Payless Cigars. And so a couple of them have been so popular that they've gone on to have a little bit more. But usually it's one and done. Yeah, most of the time.
Let's shift the gears a second and talk about some current dialogue that has been floating around social media today. One of the posts I saw the other day, and I don't disagree with this comment, is there seems to be a slight lessening of quality of cigars coming out of Nicaragua. People have been talking about how the cigars aren't burning as well, and I'm experiencing that too. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I know I have. And because I get a cigar, and I'm going to give you, I'll just say it right here. All right, people can lambaste me for this all they want, but I just put out the review on the new Padron, okay? And when I got that cigar, the pre-light was just to die for, man. I was like, this is really nice. You're talking 10-year, at least 10-year age tobaccos in it, all coming out of Nicaragua, all coming out of Padron farms and all of that. So everything about that, great. Flavor-wise and balance-wise, excellent. Very nice flavor profile. The first third, burned nicely. Good. Right, as I would expect from a Padron. But then it didn't go off the rails necessarily, but it definitely started to have some burn issues in my scale that knocked it down, okay, in its rating. I had all hope that this cigar was going to burn like a 64 or a 26, and it didn't. It wasn't pristine. didn't do what I would expect it to do. And I was just like,
Mm.
so I have fear that, are we trying to produce them too fast? Are they overextending their rollers, their puncheros, probably not the roller, but the punchero himself? Okay, are they bunching them, too fast? Doing, I don't know. I can only imagine what's going on in factories. Um, what's your thoughts? What is your experience?
I mean, I can't really say as I've noticed that. I mean, but I could see where it's possible because, during COVID, things went so crazy and people were buying so many cigars and maybe they, upped production and now we're finally starting to get those cigars from that era. I could see that as a possibility. I personally don't know if that I've really noticed that. I mean, obviously we get cigars that it don't always perform correctly, but I don't know if I've noticed like a specific trend or anything along those lines. Although in Colorado we do fight the battle all the time because we're such a dry
Mhm.
it's so dry here that for us, like especially in the wintertime, like it's a challenge. You really have to acclimate the cigars for quite a while. So, you're in Florida, right?
We have the opposite effect here. Like I can't
Yeah,
smoke cigars outside this time of the year. It's impossible.
right.
It's just
So,
horrible. It's 98% humidity
yeah,
outside, 95 degrees.
yeah, exactly the opposite. So, I don't know, maybe just you could be totally right. I'm not discounting what you're saying at all. I just personally haven't like really noticed that much.
Okay. What trends are you following right now in the industry?
That's a really good question. There's always seems to be trends. I mean, I remember when everybody was doing sort of amped up Connecticut's, that kind of thing. That was sort of like
That was a
2015.
that was a good change.
Yeah,
Not
I
for
was I
nothing,
love
because
that. I love that.
it brought the Connecticut approachable to the person who wants a slightly bolder cigar than
Yeah,
just the what people would call just a papery Connecticut.
right. I think the biggest trend now probably is another trend that I particularly like. I actually enjoy, and that's um growing tobacco that is from a certain region, but now growing it somewhere else. Like obviously like Aladino growing Cameroon, in Honduras. And I like when they're experimenting with that kind of stuff where they're doing hybrid leaves and that kind of stuff. But I dig the growing of a tobacco that is from a certain region and now growing it somewhere else. I think that is interesting to me. And I think Aladino did a great job with that Cameroon. So that's kind of one trend that I think is kind of fun. I hope more people get on that bandwagon and do more and more of that. You see like broadleaf in Nicaragua and that kind of stuff.
Broadleaf has always been a cigar geek's go-to. When you think about what people always rave about, and I don't disagree that, having more of that being grown outside of
Yeah,
just Connecticut Valley or Pennsylvania, suddenly you're creating it there. The soils are going to be different. The nutrients are going to be different. The flavors are going to have some nuanced differences in it. So yeah, I mean, that innovation, keep it going. Just
yeah.
keep
I
pressing that
like
science.
I like the experimentation just in general. I mean, I know it doesn't always work, right? Like, but I like it in general just because there's only, when you've had like the Habano and you've had this and you've had that, like there's only so much, variation you can get with it. So I like when they're trying sort of new stuff with the hybrids and that kind of stuff. It gives you a chance to maybe experience something and you might say, "Oh, like that, that's really good," or that's not for me, whatever. But at least it's something unique and different. And because I'm in this industry, the same one you're in, I don't typically smoke the same cigar all the time. So it's since we're always smoking all the new stuff all the time, it's fun to see some of them stand out because they're unique and they're trying something new, like Yagua with JC Newman, bundling it in that palm leaf and that kind of stuff. I like it. Is it gimmicky? Yeah, it's kind of gimmicky, but I like it anyways. It appeals to me. It's a marketing ploy that works for me, and so I dig that kind of stuff.
And there's a story behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the narratives, right? Like
Oh,
to
yeah.
me, that's what sells cigars for me. Like I like the narrative. Oh, we did this. We aged it in this bourbon barrel or whatever. Like I dig the narrative because then when I taste it, I can see like, oh, like I noticed that or I didn't notice that or whatever, but at least it's something unique and different. You get a zillion of the same kind of cigar, so it's fun when there's like a fun narrative around the cigar and what it took to produce.
Hmm. Now, what about, I'll give you some more trends that I've seen, right? So large ring gauge cigars.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't get it, but people
I
buy
can't.
them.
Oh yeah, yeah. They sell like crazy. They're not for me. Never have been. They keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and every year somebody outdoes somebody else. And I know some
It's
people just dig it, but it's not for me. If it gets past 58, if 58's already pushing
yeah,
it
it's
for
already too
me.
big.
In
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of too big, but like now they're getting crazy with stuff like that. So no, it's not my thing. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm a big Lancero guy. All right, I have like a whole humidor, desktop humidor that just has my Lanceros in it, and I just love a good Lancero, right? And I wish there would be more of them, but they're not big sellers,
Yeah, no.
and it's sad because, if you're just joining the the brotherhood, um, you shy away from that. You probably into Robustos and Toros and Torpedoes. But man, you get into those Lanceros, it's just like that defines the old adage of the 70% of the flavor is in the wrapper. Yeah, on a Lancero, hell yes. Okay. On a 60 ring gauge, hell no.
No, of course not, right? It's just
Right.
math, right? It's just math. There's
Right.
so like we've had this discussion with guys in the industry, like, and they swear by that. And we wrote a whole article on that exact topic, how it just cannot be true. The smaller the ring gauge, obviously, the more prominent the wrapper becomes. Like here's how you can prove it, right? Imagine if you drew down a cigar so small, so the ring gauge was so tiny, right? That essentially the only thing that you had was the wrapper. Then the wrapper would be 100% of that particular cigar, which is a tiny little toothpick of a cigar, right? As you make that ring gauge larger and larger, it's just math. The wrapper just becomes less and less of the overall makeup of the cigar. So you can't get away from math. Now you could say, well, yeah, but the binder sometimes has basically no flavor because it's for combustion. Yeah, but the fillers have flavor. So maybe you could throw in the binder argument as being like a tobacco that doesn't have much flavor. But I don't even think that's a great selling point anyways, because to me, the filler is like the filler in a recipe of food like that. You
Ah,
should be getting,
I
some good fun flavor from the filler. I don't want the wrapper to be 70% of the flavor.
I like to compare it to a I'm I have various different spirits that I like. All right. Um, and I don't drink a lot of spirits. I do a lot more wine now. But if I'm in a spirit mood and I'm not going into the scotches, I'm going to go into gins, right? So you take a gin martini, right? So you create a gin martini. You can create a straight up gin martini according to the recipe, and you're going to put a certain amount of vermouth in, and you're going to certain
Right.
amount of gin in, and you're going to either shake it or stir it, and you're going to pour it, right? That's not my martini, right? My martini is to take the gin, the vermouth, you pour it into the glass with ice and sit it aside. And then you take the gin, you put it in a shaker, and you shake the shit out of it, right? And then you take that glass with the vermouth in it, and you dump it out, literally. So all you got is just a little bit of that vermouth around the glass, and then you pour the gin in. Okay, it's still a martini, but you're going to get more gin taste. If you do it the original
Sure.
recipe, you're going to be tasting the vermouth on top of that, and that's how I would describe cigars as far as fillers versus wrappers and so forth. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
where are you with prices of cigars today? I mean,
Oof.
you
Well,
see some of these things like that, like that Padron was $40.
yeah.
And I had to honestly say in my review that I spend $40 for that cigar. I'm just not going to. Okay,
Yeah.
because the 26 is less and it's better.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, obviously I get it. It's inflation, right? Everybody's fighting it. But
You know what?
is he coming back? I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
there
yeah.
he is.
Zoom
I
just
I
decided to
think
crash.
it's hot where you are, so you're probably
Yeah, it's the glitch from yesterday still working its way through the world. You know, um, I don't see your video yet coming through. You can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
weird.
my video is still streaming.
Yeah. Okay.
Just not your
All right, we'll
video.
get back to it.
But
So
as
yeah, so
far
like pricing.
prices, everybody's making the $100 cigar. That's a different thing altogether. That has nothing to do with inflation. It's more of a sort of a marketing thing, and some people dig that. It is what it is. Some people get really mad about the $100 cigar thing. I don't get mad about it. Like, hey, who cares? If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. Simple as that.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And but there's a trend of that. I've seen
Yeah,
these cigar prices pushing 40, 60, 80, $100. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And people smoking, there are people going to smoke a 200, you just did the Fuente Padron collaboration, right?
yeah,
You got to buy two cigars. You can't buy just one of those cigars. You got to buy two of them. They're $400 between the two of them. They're $200 a piece,
yeah,
right? And you sit there and you go, I guess if you don't care about dollars and cents,
yeah,
end up smoking a $200 cigar because you could say, "You look at me, I'm smoking a $200 cigar." But it gets to a point when there is a limit, right? Mathematically,
yeah.
there's a limit that's going to say you aren't going to get 5, 10 times more experience out of that
No, of
than you
course.
did on a normal cigar.
No, yeah, yeah. No, you're right.
So it just it boggles my mind. And like I said earlier, too, because you make cigars also, what it costs to make them. And you make good cigars. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
It's
it's tricky because I mean, even with the knuckle sandwich that we're coming out with, it was very, very difficult to get that into the price range that we thought, would sell. Because this one comes in a really nice box. And both of the bands on it, you have the actual knuckle sandwich band, and you have the sub band, which is similar, but it has the Cigar Dojo Strike Force on it. All of those things combined, it's not a bundled stick anymore, right? It's in a box, a really nice collectible box, and that just alone is adding almost $1 to the cigar. So, you
okay.
know, but we don't want to try, $18 for that just seemed, per cigar just seemed too much. So we had to, do what we could do as far as, cutting, what all the people make out of it. So we could get it down to that 149 mark, which we thought was with what guys would want to buy that for. It's a struggle, because everything's expensive right now. So.
Of course, and I get it. Then there are limits, but the difference. When I think of if I'm going to buy a sports car, if I'm going to buy a Maserati versus um, a Camaro Z12, Z0 whatever, um, there's a big difference between the Maserati and the Camaro, right? Huge difference. And the price is factored into that. It makes sense. So I don't know. I wish them all the best with those. I'm sure they sell. Eventually they'll sell them. Okay. I'm sure a lot of these will just, they'll be in the shops and people will eventually buy them and they'll eventually be sold out as they go on.
Yeah, I
So
mean what was the Padron that came in the real, it was a few years back. Initially I think they were close to $100 a stick, but now you can find those for like 40 or whatever. So yeah, like it came down naturally through the market, the prices on that particular cigar. So they find their place in the market and it works itself out, which is fine with me. Like I said, you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. You don't like, and then like you said, the experience that you get isn't going to probably be dramatically different, but if you have the income and the money to throw that around, you might want to do that for fun. And some people do, and good on them. I got no issue with it.
special occasion kind of
Yeah,
thing, somebody's getting married in your
yeah,
family, something like
yeah.
that. So yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we just my daughter just got married and it was in my backyard and I busted out the Davidoff Anniversario #3s for everybody because I know that cigar is absolutely phenomenal and I wanted everybody to really have a good time and so it was it was worth it in that instance. So it just all depends on if you have the money and if you know the cigar's good or whatever and or if you want to try it, like obviously with the Padron Fuente one, I probably won't ever get to try that one. And it's a little out of my range.
Not unless
Yeah.
somebody's sending me one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I'd be afraid, I mean, I'd be afraid to smoke that cigar and then having to review it. And if it didn't, I mean, that cigar at that price has got to be the most pristine cigar I ever smoked. I mean, the best cigar I ever smoked in my life
Yeah.
was in 2010, 2009, I don't know, some way. I was making trips back and forth to Germany on business, and I would always hang out at the Casa del Albano's house in Nuremberg,
Mm.
Germany. And my last trip that I knew I was going over there for the contract I was working on is coming up to an end. So I went in there and I told him, I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to be coming back on a regular basis like I have been, but I want you to get me what you consider your best Cuban cigar. And he comes out with the Don Alessandro Vegas Robania, the one that the old man himself personally
Mm.
rolls before he passed away. Wow.
Mm.
That cigar was 3 hours of smoke. It was freaking double Corona,
Mm.
big freaking cigar. And the flavor, I could go to a flavor wheel and just go ding, 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 ding. And it wasn't just like randomly, it was just like this journey of like, and I wrote a whole poetic review of it, right? Literally wrote a poem about it called The Ode to Nuremberg, where I talked about Nuremberg and talked about that cigar in that story, about how it took me into what I call cigar, what I said was cigar Himmel, which is heaven, right? Cigar heaven. And it's like, that's my, that's it. That was the greatest cigar I ever smoked. Um, but with Cuban cigars, let's transition to that. Where are you on Cubans these days? I mean, with everything you see going on, the price increases that they did are atrocious. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, just insanity. I was over in Spain last year on business in Madrid, and I walked into a shop, and the humidor, big walk-in humidor, stacks and stacks of New World cigars. You would think you walked into an American humidor. Everything we like in that humidor. on the side and the back, there was a space about 2 feet by 2 feet was the Cuban section, which is a complete flip of the script of what I experienced of my time spending in Europe in business, where it used to be the other way around, right? So I picked up a Monte Cristo 2, which is one of my favorite Cuban cigars. So I get myself a Monte Cristo 2, and then I picked up some other cool stuff. I actually picked up a Drew Estate that's only made for them over there, which is interesting. I still have it. I haven't smoked it yet. I smoked it then, but I have another one that I have to smoke again. And I went across the street. I sat in a little cafe outside. It was in the springtime. It was beautiful weather. Got myself a nice piece of cake and a double espresso. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this cigar. And the first inch of that cigar was everything I expected from that. And then the whole thing went right off the rails. It started moving off to the side. It started canoeing. I was touching it up, major toucher. I'm like going, I don't know what happened to them. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I don't know if you smoked any Cubans lately, or your favorite Cubans.
Yeah, I mean, Cubans are tricky, right? Like, you can have a Cuban on occasion, and it just really hits just right. Like when it's a good Cuban, like a good Cuban cigar can be great. Like there's no like some people just say, oh, they're all terrible. That's not true. It's not true. Some people say, oh, they're the best. It's Cuban cigars are the best. Nah, that's not true. Like neither one of those things are true. The truth is there can be really good Cuban. I've had a Cohiba Siglo. I don't even remember the number now, but it was fantastic cigar. Like absolutely fantastic. I loved every bit of it. I've had Behikis. I've had all those. Like it can be good, but they have one pretty much flavor profile, right? So like if you smoked Cubans every day, even good ones, it would get monotonous because they really don't blend like they do. In Cuba, they don't really blend like they do in Nicaragua or
They
the
got
DR.
regions. They have regions.
Yeah, right.
That's the extent. But that's the
But
extent
but
of
but
it.
also the factories make, very, one factory might make Cohibas and another factory might make Cohiba, so it's just different. Yeah, you can get a good Cuban, but for the most part, I don't chase after them. I'll have one on occasion and enjoy it, or I'll have one on occasion and doesn't draw or it's terrible. Like, so it's kind of a crapshoot, right? Like, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I've seen that in the last 10 years go like this for quality. That's
Yeah.
that's my concern. The
Yeah, I think
quality of the
there's truth to
construction
that. Yeah.
has definitely gone down. The prices have astronomically gone up, and the availability has gone down dramatically because a shitload of those are going into China because China now owns a piece
Yeah.
of it. So they're all heading over to the Chinese market, which is a very growing market for cigars. So they're pushing over there.
Yeah.
So,
There's a few that are always sort of pretty good, but I don't know. I don't chase after it really. It's kind of like it's like bourbon for me. Like there's, some of the great bourbons are super hard to get, and I just don't chase after it. Like I can find bourbon that is just as good or at least in the ballpark as being good for much less, and there's no chasing or standing in lines or anything. I'm too old for that right now, just give me a good solid bourbon and I'm happy.
yeah, I'm not a big bourbon guy. I'm a big Scotch guy and Irish whiskey guy. I mean,
Yeah.
when I talk Irish whiskey, I am not talking about Jamesons and Bushmills. I'm talking about these craft companies, like Redbreast. I don't know if you had Redbreast 12.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that's one of the best spirits to drink with a cigar because it has this beautiful cinnamon and spice note in the beverage that goes so well with a cigar. But when it comes to Scotch, see, for me, the difference between Scotch and bourbon, like you said, the bourbons tend to, I don't know, they're kind of the same. You might get a little more of the molasses note and this. Get into the scotches, there's so many different varieties of them, and I'm an Islay guy. I like peaty bourbon. I mean, scotches. I was on a Scotch and cigar cruise years ago here, a little down in Stewart, Florida, and we just kind of took this sailboat out around the bay, and they had cigars and we had whiskey tastings, and we had a great time, right? Learned a lot about. So I drank some scotch that like I could not afford normally, right? I mean, I went home with all the photos and I looked these up and I realized I was drinking 750, $800 bottles of
Mm.
scotch. And I could tell you that in that case, yes, that $750 bottle that we tasted was spectacular. How it just lit up the palate, just a sip, just a touch on the tongue is all you needed. You didn't need to, you sip it just a little bit and your whole palate just exploded with flavor. And then you're like, yeah, that's what, see, that's where I would want when I look at a cigar being higher priced. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. Boom, give me something that is spectacular. It's mind blowing in my head. They go like, yes, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So this is usually the point in the show where I talk a little personal things, but you follow the Colorado Rockies?
No, I'm not really a baseball guy.
Oh, baseball guy. What's your sport?
Hockey. I'm a hockey guy. So
Okay.
follow hockey religiously. Obviously a Colorado Avalanche fan. A little bit of football is fun too, but I'm not nearly as devoted to football as I am hockey.
Did you
That's my
play
game.
did you play hockey when you were a kid? Just in the
No,
street?
I didn't, but I ended up coaching hockey for a long time. My sons played hockey and they play travel hockey and all that kind of stuff. And Jordan still plays adult hockey to this day. And so I played a little bit of adult with him, but I'm terrible. I'm no good at it. But it's fun. It's a blast. And I wish I was better at it, but nowadays I just watch.
I heard it's I mean, when I was a kid, we played street hockey in New York. I grew
Hmm.
up in New York and in Long Island, and we played street hockey. And my particular town I lived in, we had 12 blocks, South First Street to South 12th Street. And there was enough kids on each block that they were able to have a hockey team. So we had 12 hockey teams in 12 blocks, or 12 streets, I should say, right? So we had our own bracket of things that we would play. And the only rule changes from street to street was what you use for a puck. Now we didn't. This is not roller skates. It was all sneakers, right?
Yeah.
Just on asphalt, right? And you would have some streets use the ball, okay. Some streets use the plastic puck. My street, we were little nuts. We said no. You come to South 4th Street, we're using regulation hockey puck. Now you think about that for a second. Regulation hockey puck, no ice, on asphalt, right? When you slap that thing's moving hard and it hits hard, right? It hurts. I played goalie. And I didn't have, we didn't have any money, right? So I had to I found like somebody was throwing away a foam rubber mattress in the neighborhood. So I took it, I cut it up and I used it for leg pads, right? My father was a little league coach. So I had the catcher's protector and I had the catcher's mask. I had a first baseman's glove originally. I eventually got a real glove for Christmas, but I had a first baseman's glove. All right. And I was like, I would lay down in front of goals, man. Go take a slap shot at me. I don't care. You're not hurting me. Boom. But every now and then I'd get one in the shoulder and it would sting. But that was a lot of fun. But it didn't cost us anything other than the stick. And in fact, my goalie stick, I couldn't buy a goalie stick. My brother had a couple of hockey sticks, so we slapped a couple of boards on it to turn it into a goalie stick. Right? Today, I imagine, from what I understand, that is one of the most expensive youth
Yeah.
sports out there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. At one point I had four kids playing travel hockey all at the same time. Two sons and two of my daughters they were all playing at the same time, and that was rough.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like they're all grown up now. So, but they, like you
Yeah.
said, some of us still playing, but hopefully
Yeah,
they're
they're all
paying
grown
for
up.
it themselves.
No, yeah, they're on their own now at this point. So
um, where are you on the music spectrum?
I grew up I was into punk rock. I still sort of am to this day.
At Kennedy's and
And I
Ramones,
saw the Dead Kennedys. I didn't think they were that good, but like Ramones, Clash, they're all great, that kind of stuff. Um,
Sex Pistols?
no, I never saw them, but I was into them. We had a band. We played a couple of their songs back in the day, like when I was in
Okay.
high school and that kind of stuff. Played a lot of Ramones kind of stuff. But I'm still into that music
Oh
even
yeah, me
now.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's on my regular rotation when I'm sitting
yeah,
out here. Sometimes I put on Pandora. I said, just put the Ramon station on, and I
yeah.
get all of these great songs.
Oh
And
yeah, they're amazing.
I used to, when I grew up in the 70s in New York, all right. When I was in college, I would hang out down in the Bowery, and I would go to CBGB's and Max's Kansas City, some of those great clubs they had. And I remember I saw the Sex Pistols play there, which was
Mm.
just kind of the weirdest thing I ever saw because, Sid Vicious would like spit on people and people would come up to him like, spit on these, it's like, and I'm standing in the back going, okay, I'm not that so much.
Right.
Um, I saw the Plasmatics.
Mm.
That
Wendy O.
was
Williams.
oh, she was a trip and a half, you know. So yeah, I absolutely love all of that era. And I have to say that, when people talk about punk rock, like, the Ramones were mainstream. They really opened the door for people like the Clash and others to really come into the fray because they kind of put it mainstream because they're like the Beach Boys of punk rock, because their music was a lot. They were fun.
Yeah,
They was
fun.
just
Yeah.
fun to listen to them and to watch them play. I remember being at my first wedding, our honeymoon we did in Virginia Beach, and my ex-wife and I, we were big Ramones fans. We saw them play all over Long Island, and we were in this club in Virginia Beach. It was in the middle of June. It was the hottest day. It had to be 98 degrees outside and probably 100 inside. There was like, people crowded in, so it was so hot. And these guys get on full leather attire and everything and just non-stops. And you just watch these guys and like, this isn't like they're getting air conditioning playing in there, and they're just sweating bullets and just throwing out the tunes one after the other after the other. Just like, yeah,
Right.
yeah. It was. I still have my original Ramones shirt. Actually, I wear it all the time.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I have most of my Ramones albums still, I think, somewhere in my
Hmm.
basement. Yeah.
I got a whole
Bunch of
album
other
collection.
yeah.
Absolutely, I love listening to vinyl. I finally bought myself a new turntable because the other one finally died. And I said I could probably find the parts to fix it. I could just buy another one for $100. You know? And
I need to get a good turntable so I can play some of those
they're not,
again.
you don't need to go overboard on them today because the technology's better. And also the new records, like I just saw the Rolling Stones play, and I had bought their new album, Hackney Diamonds. And when I got that record and I picked it up, it's heavy. It's not like a
Mm,
flimsy vinyl. It's like the old school heavy vinyl. So, the grooves are better in it.
mm.
And when I put that on and I listened to it, I just closed my eyes and it's like the sound was so pristine coming out of it. I love vinyl. I mean, I was not a huge fan of the CD era. Didn't make sense. Even the electronic era, it's not the same. You know, I
Right.
could play that same album, stream it to my stereo and listen to it, and then put the album on, and I hear more nuanced sounds coming out of the album.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's warmer, you know, warmer
So did
sound.
you did you uh did you go to university?
For a little bit. But not for very long.
What'd you study?
Nothing. I mean, I was just trying to find my way, man. I didn't study anything. I didn't make it very
Study
I di-
drinking?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't make it very far, so and
Hmm.
then after that just started a family and started having kids, and that's when life really got good, you know.
Oh. So what were you doing before you did the dojo? Obviously, this is more of a full-time thing for you now. It's
Right.
does this pays your bills and
Yeah.
stuff. What
Yeah.
were you doing before all of this happened back in 2010, 2009?
So I was mainly a graphic artist, so I did a lot of graphic art stuff. But then I eventually got into to internet and SEO, and so I was consulting with SEO for companies, trying to help them with their SEO back in the day when there was a lot of tips and tricks that you could do with SEO and stuff. And so that was sort of my expertise, and I had uh, basically taken the family business and turned it into kind of an SEO internet kind of company, and then eventually that became the dojo after a while. So internet graphics, that kind of stuff, graphic design, sort of my expertise.
So where are you on AI? What's your view of AI going forward? It's a fun topic always, but
It's a tool, right? It's like a hammer. It could be misused. You could take a hammer and you could smack somebody on the head, or you could take a hammer and you could drive a nail. So it depends on how you use the tool, right? Like it could be a good tool or it could be a bad tool. Uh, I don't know where it's gonna go because it's changing so fast. It's kind of hard to get your head around
yep.
it. But right now, I think it's a net positive. I don't know if it'll always be that way, but it seems like a net positive right now. It can be a really handy tool, you know.
If like you said, if you're using it for what to do what you need to do the right way. I'm actually just working through a class right now at Harvard, one of their free classes on AI, one of the advanced classes. And as I was going through it, being an engineer myself, a lot of the intro stuff was like, okay, this is boring. Kind of know this, right? Then as they get through some more lectures, you get some more depth. And then I had to step back and think to myself, when they take Chat GPT, right? Everybody knows Chat GPT. Don't use Chat GPT like you use Google. Okay. What you need to do to these engines are designed for you to put in the proper prompts. You got to use phrases like ands and ors, okay, to go in. You got to build a logical query when you ask it. If you ask it just a simple thing like "show me this," it's like okay, big deal. I could do that in Google, right? But you put it into Chat GPT, you ask more. You just structure that input in a way that you're going to get a much deeper, more accurate answer. Okay, if the engine has already learned, the engine hasn't learned, you're gonna have to teach. They have to teach the engine more, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's where we're at today. It's really building the knowledge base of what we have, or what they call the frontier. All right, building that out, and each of the usages of it. When you look at industry, right? Yeah, automotive industry. I did a lot of work in the automotive industry. The automotive industry is going to use that. They're not using Chat GPT. They're using an AI engine to design, to produce designs, all right, based on what you're asking it to do, to optimize certain things, to find the most optimal equation or the most optimal design based on the requirements that you feed it. The scary part for me as an engineer, I think, everybody talks about AI. AI is not going to eliminate the uh it's going to eliminate more white collar jobs in the future than it is going to eliminate blue collar jobs. Okay. Eventually, robotics with AI and all of that might start to feed into it from a manufacturing perspective. But when the engineers, you get to the point where all you're going to do is you got an idea, you have to, if you know how to formulate the requirements for what you want and feed it into it, it's going to give you answers. But then you can't take that answer at its value. You have to then, that's where you get an engineer that says, okay, now what is it telling me and what do I do? But I don't need as many engineers, because originally I had engineers coming up with all these designs to feed into it. The AI engine's giving you 90% of that.
Yeah.
So that reduces the need for the lower level design engineers. And now the higher level engineers are going to look at that and say, okay, what more can we do when we integrate stuff? How's it going to work and all of that? Where are all the interfaces and all that stuff? So yeah, AI
It's
is
interesting. Yeah.
not going away.
No, not anytime soon.
No, 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 no.
Uh,
So what's the future now for Dojo? Where do you feel you have reached the equation you want to be at, or is there something more that you're going to want to do, or is this running on autopilot at this point?
no, I mean, we we want to continue to, so our app, the Cigar Dojo app, um a few years back, got basically kicked out of all the app stores because it was tobacco related. Um, and at that point, we started developing dojoverse.com, which is a progressive web app. So it's essentially an app, but it's through a browser, and you save it to your home screen, and it functions just like an app, but you don't get it through the app store. And the pros and cons are, the cons are we're not in the app store, so it's harder to find. People don't know unless they hear about it. It's trickier to get them to understand what's going on. But then the pro part of it is that we are in complete control. We're not beholden to Apple. We're not beholden to Google. We can do whatever we want. And so we've been developing that for 3 years. We try to continue to add different cool, fun features, custom features that you can't get anywhere else, proprietary stuff that we've developed over the years. Obviously with cigar check-ins and all that kind of cool stuff. And then every year we decide, me and Jordan get together and we determine, all right, what do we want to add this year that'll be a value or a benefit to the community, to make them have a better experience on the app. So, I guess for the next, foreseeable future, that's sort of what we'll be doing is refining, um, adding to it, developing it, adding features, custom features, that kind of stuff. And so we have already ideas for next year, what's going to be, new and fresh, and we just keep on rocking, keep changing it so that it's fun all the time.
Yeah. Where are you now on, do you like the idea of going back to New Orleans? It's a little long trip for you.
I mean, it's a plane ride, so it doesn't really matter that much, but I don't know. I mean, I like Vegas. And I actually like it in the summer. I like the heat. I'm a heat guy. I can take the heat. I love it. But at the same time, I don't dislike it being in it doesn't bother me that it's in, March or April next year, whatever it is. I think it's April next year.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of the New Orleans Convention Center the last time it was there in 2015. It's a really, really long convention center. The walk, if you don't go right to that area, our hotel the last time we were there was sort of at the end of it, and so we would have to walk just so far. By the end of the convention, we were Ubering just back to our hotel because it seems like a mile. I don't know how long that convention center is, but it's very, very long. So I'm not a huge
Absolutely.
fan. I kind of feel like there's not a lot of great places to smoke because smoking is outlawed for the most part in the city, other than certain places. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I talked to Josh last week on the show and I asked him about that. And they've worked, they're really wanting, they want this, no one's right. And they know that there's a lot of revenue coming into the city because of it. You're not going to be able to smoke in the casino because that's done, right? But you are going to be able to smoke in the convention center, all right, which is good. All
Yeah.
right. And then they're working with, obviously there's some shops along the way that you can smoke at. So you're going to have some venues and some parties that are going to allow smoking. So they have got some, I don't know if they necessarily a variance or whatever, but they do have some things in the works to, keep the experience good. The hardest part in New Orleans is 90% of the people, when they're done with the show and they want to go out, they're going down to Bourbon Street. All
Yeah.
right. And you go down to Bourbon Street, the law in New Orleans, if I remember correctly, you can't smoke within 20 feet of a building or, of a venue. And you walk down you could stand in the middle of Bourbon Street within 20 feet of anything. So that can be a little confusing. But
Yeah.
going back to the convention center, I remember when we had it the last time. You know Ryan Gallimore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan had at that time he had his Swinger cigar company.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember when he was really promoting it big. So he went and he had two golf carts all branded with Swinger logos. And he was able to, they would pick people up and drive them down to the other
Oh,
side
that's
of the
great.
convention,
Yeah.
back and forth. And I would hope that anybody that's listening, if you're out there and you're a cigar brand owner, um,
Yeah.
copy this idea because it's really fun because it made that walk, the traversing the length
Yeah.
of that convention center easier. People jump on the thing and they drive you down and they drop you off and then you work that sector. So it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And
That is
then
brilliant.
the logo and everything was there. So everybody saw the Swinger golf cart because it was all golf related, so he really helped his brand with that. But unfortunately, right after that, we get hit with the FDA shit and he folded the business, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody wants to do something. That is a way to get your name out there, especially if you're a small guy. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go contact PCA and say, "Here's, I'm going to go do this," and and make it happen.
Nowadays for us, it kind of doesn't really matter where the show is for me anymore because, we typically, we have a sort of a large team that goes down there and, so we just get an Airbnb somewhere, and usually as soon as the show's over, I don't go to a lot of after parties and stuff like that. In fact, I typically don't go to any of them. We just go back to the house and work on content and, have a couple cold beers and hang out and smoke cigars there. So it kind of doesn't really matter to me, but I will probably miss Vegas a little bit. I do enjoy going down there, I have to say. Not for the gambling or anything like that. I'm so comfortable with it. I know the city so well. I know
Right.
everything about it. So I'm just so used to it. So that part of it is kind of a drag.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the fun thing about Vegas, and a lot of people don't know this, Vegas has an underground system of tunnels that connect casinos along the strip. All right. There's ways of getting through Vegas without ever coming up to the street level to go through. My wife used to work in the shoe business, and they did a lot. They had two big shows. They did it in Vegas, and she said, "Oh yeah, they used to just traverse everything. They used to walk around underneath so you could stay out of the heat." So I told her, "You got to give me the map. Show me
Yeah, right. Yeah.
how to get into this stuff." So. Hmm. But so anything else new that you want to put out there other than your new cigar and
Well,
Dojo verse expanding?
we got Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest coming up, and That's the big smoker friendly event that's here in Colorado every August, and we have events that lead up to that, dojo events. We have one event here in the studio called Docella. Everybody comes to that. It's great. A lot of cigar celebrities come to that. That's on the Thursday night before, and then the next day we do a brewery bus tour where we pack a bunch of guys on a big old limo bus, and we go hit some, because Colorado is known for craft brew, and so we hit a bunch of craft breweries the next day. And then Friday night we have another party at the Aloft Hotel in Broomfield, and all of the parties this year for us at least are sponsored by Camacho. So our good buddies at Camacho are helping us out to make the event even bigger. We've been doing this for, oh, I don't know, we used to have our dojo party in Vegas at PCA, but we were so focused on covering the event that it was hard to enjoy the people that would fly in just to hang out for the dojo stuff, that we decided to change it. And now we do it in combination with the Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, which is, by the way, absolutely fantastic event, beautiful venue. It's one of the coolest multi-vendor events that you can go to. So we have events that lead up to Rocky Mountain, and then Rocky Mountain is that Saturday, August 24th this year. So right now we're sort of in the mode of preparing for all of that. And I can't believe it's already here. It seems like we just did it, but now we're only a month away from it. So
Year is flying by.
Jordan and I are working feverishly to prepare for those events along with our good buddies at Camacho. So it'll be fun.
That's one of the events in all these years I've not been to, because every time I try to do it, it's sold out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it sells out in a couple minutes. So you got to
I
just
just
hook up
can't.
with a vendor, and they can get you in probably, hook up
Yeah, just
with somebody. They probably got vendor passes that they could get you in. It's an amazing event. It really is.
I'm gonna have to hook up with this guy Eric and say,
Well, you definitely should come to our Thursday night party because it's amazing. Like Steve Saka's here, Eric Espinosa's always here, Jack Chirano, the guys from Camacho, George Ramy, Eddie Guerrera. I mean, you name it, they're here. I'm leaving out a million of them. Justin Andrews, Tommy Lazuka, Mickey Pegg. They're all here, man. They're all right here in the studio. Terrence Riley, everybody. And we have a great time. We do a show that night, play some cornhole. We have a celebrity chef coming in to cook for everybody. And so it's going to be a great event this year.
celebrity chef, you should bring Guy in to cook for you.
Yeah, I think he'd be a little tougher. So he'd be a little tougher to
Promote
get.
his cigars. It
Yeah.
would be a good moment for him. One question I forgot to ask you earlier
Yeah.
in the show is, so PCA 2024, what did you see? What are you interested in? What piqued your interest? So maybe new brands or new releases that really is piquing your interest?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tricky because like when we're there, we're just so focused on creating content,
Yeah, but you've got all these, you're running through this review cycle,
Yeah,
right? What is
yeah,
it that you really want to get in your mouth here? What cigar are you really like saying? You haven't reviewed it yet. You haven't really. It's like you want to,
right.
or you saw a new brand. Like for me, I think one of the the new brands that I'm really all about is El Mago.
Yeah,
All
they
right,
make some good stuff. That kid,
that
good
kid
for him.
is,
Yeah,
great story, the
yeah.
whole, good stuff, and he's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Arsenio that Terrence
Mm,
came out, I think is a good cigar. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think back now of some of the stuff that we thought out of that show was really, really impressive. The new Quesada 50th I thought was really, really good. I mean, Quesada was a brand that I think sort of went into a really bad slump for a while, but now
mm.
they seem to be back and making some really, really good stuff. So good for Quesada. We're excited for them to kind of see them kind of come back on the scene. Obviously, the stuff that Hoya and Drew State are doing is exciting. But yeah, as far as we just recently reviewed the Ferrotega Suma, which we liked a lot. I think that's a really good cigar. Geez, what else? You put me on the spot here. I'm trying to remember now.
Did you try the Don Terra?
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I was
Expensive,
surprised,
they're
but
not cheap. They're like
yeah, yeah.
24, but I think they're worth the $23.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed their cigars quite a bit. Glad you brought.
And a good story.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a good stick. Yeah, I really like that. They sent that really nice media pack out with
A cool lighter
the cool lighter and the leather
right there.
pouch, and I
I use
wasn't
this
really
all
expecting
the freaking
much
time.
out of it, but I really like that cigar. I went to Pro Cigar this year and kind of got a new appreciation for some of the Dominican stuff, and I've always liked Dominican cigars, but I kind of got into a what do you call it, a cycle where I was just really you know doing all the Dominican stuff. So there's some great stuff coming out of there these days. And that was such a fun event. I don't know if I'd ever go again because it's I don't know, it's a little bit more party-ish, like dress up kind of stuff for me, but it was still really
Sure.
cool. I got to go to some factories, Fuentes factory and Quesada and LFD and all that kind of stuff, and that was a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to this year's Cigar of the Year awards. We're gonna have to. I can't believe we'll have to start preparing for that in the next probably 2-3 months as well. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There's some interesting things I've been going through. Have you ever been over to Dortmund?
I have not. I've not. The year that Drew Estate asked me and Jordan to go, we had already had a prior engagement. So we couldn't make it, which I regret now. Looking back on it, I would have liked to have done that, but I've not gone there. No.
Yeah, that's on my radar screen. I was contemplating going this year, but like you
Yeah.
said, the years flown by, man. Here we are in
Yeah,
August,
I know.
going into
I
August
know.
practically. It's like, holy crap, man. It's like,
One kind of
where'd the
cool
year
thing,
go?
one kind of cool thing is because PCA isn't in July. So like normally in July, you have PCA.
Right.
And obviously 2, 3, 4 weeks before that, you're gearing up. And then you do the show, and then there's 2, 3 weeks after where you're like finishing all of your content and getting all that pumped out. And so it just eats up so much of your summer. And then boom, the next thing for us is Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest at the end of August. My summers just feel like I don't even get to enjoy them with the family or anything. Like it's completely absorbed by the stuff that we do in the industry. So this year is nice. Like I'm getting to, enjoy this July, spend a little bit more time with the family and sit in
Yeah.
my backyard, a little bit more. And so I'm enjoying it. I'm kind of glad that it is the way it is.
Yeah. I'm the same way. It's just like I'm sitting back and saying, well, I'm being retired now. I'm sitting back going, what do I do? And, through a couple of vacations out there, I was just up at the coast of Maine, had a phenomenal time up there. And you talk breweries, man, you run around
Yeah.
Portland, Maine. It's like, boom, it's just so many good places to go visit. Got to see a Red Sox Yankees game in Fenway when I was there. And,
That's cool.
it's just like I had a nice, chill, relaxing time
Yeah.
and and not worrying about, oh my God, I gotta prepare and go to like PCA and all of
Right.
that. So yeah, let's keep it where it's at. I enjoy this springtime PCA concept. It's
Yeah,
good.
me too.
You going to go to TPE at all this year?
We haven't been for a couple of years. We
Yeah, me
we
either.
we did it, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. And then honestly, it just kind of has a different focus. Obviously, the seesaw kind of stuff. Um, there's I'm not saying I won't ever go again, but I just don't really see the purpose for what we do to go to that because um I don't know. And I say this and then I'll probably just get a wild hair and go this year. I don't know. Like I don't know for sure. To be honest, Jimmy, we don't really focus so much on cigar news. We're not really like trying to compete with Half Wheel or Coop or anybody. We do some cigar news because it is content. But really we're mainly focused on the reviews, and we're mainly focused on the community, the lifestyle segment of things. So even when I don't know if you followed any of our PCA coverage at all or anything, but
Sure. I
it's
absolutely have.
it's mainly more fun stuff, like the reels we do on Instagram and stuff. We're trying to capture like the goofy side of the industry, the more of the lifestyle side of things. And so I'm not too concerned about like hitting TPE. I mean, you kind of got to do PCA, right? But like for the most part, I don't like chase after news stories at all. Like if they come to me, I'll post them. But we don't really chase after news. That's really not our we try to stay in our lane, I guess is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right. And that's fair. Yeah. It's, I do the news, like I said, it's content. They send me a press release, it's going out. And I'm one of those, I'm one of those guys, some people like lambast once in a while. It's like, well, why do you just put out exactly what they say? I said, because that's how press releases work.
Yeah,
Somebody
right.
puts a press release out. All I do is reformat it gently. So I like to bulletize certain things and to bold certain things. And, you know, but I'm not going to rewrite this whole thing and try to be like, oh, this is like something new. No, I'm going to take what they gave me and I'm going to give it. That's what you do. That's a press release. Every other industry, they just put it out. There it is.
I do try to rewrite them because mainly to like remove all the superlatives and stuff, like typically it's like this is the most exceptional tobacco that has ever been grown in the world, and so
Yeah, but that's why I put it out that way, because
I
it's their words,
I know, but
quote,
th-
unquote,
yeah,
their words.
I
That's
just
what I
try to
do.
turn it into a generic story that removes the superlatives, because it's supposed to be
Mhm.
coming from us. Like it's supposed to be coming, from us. So in my opinion, a press release should be removing those superlatives and
Right.
but hey, that's it's just difference of opinion. Doesn't really matter.
But when you get towards, when you get towards a PCA or a TP, like when you start
Yeah,
to
they're
get
coming fast and
into,
furious.
they just come at you like nonstop,
Yeah.
nonstop. I ain't got the time to sit there and start to digest everything that's coming to me. At the same time, trying to slip in some cigar reviews, which takes hours. You got to
Yeah.
smoke the cigars, you got to take your notes, you got to take your photos, you got to you got to write the review. By the time you're done, it's 4 or 5 hours of time easily before you put that out. And
Oh
that
yeah.
consumes like half a day just to get all of that done. And then while you're doing that, your inbox is going bing, bing, bing with
Yeah.
news articles. I'm like, God, okay, yep. You get this and you get this. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I
yeah, it
get
is.
it.
It is a challenge. That's for sure.
And I sure hope that the
Mm.
listeners, okay, and the industry appreciates what we do, and I hope the listeners understand that, you know, sometimes I get the feedback that like, oh, you do this, you get free cigars. I'm like, you know how much work we put in?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, not for nothing, you're doing much better than I am as far as monetization and what you're doing, because you're selling cigars and you got those things, you got the dojo verse and you got monetization that you've done very well. But in the end, most of us are just like, it's a little revenue. It pays for my trips to Vegas, New Orleans, wherever. Maybe I go down to Nicaragua, visit a factory or Dominican, take a trip, do a cigar tour, whatever it is. It pays for that. Okay. It doesn't buy me my new Corvette. It doesn't pay my mortgage. It doesn't do that. So the fact that I get some free cigars in the process, try it, because you think about your time in this business, a decade, right, of time that you spent in this, and think about how many media quote outlets have come and
Yeah.
gone
Yeah.
in the time that we've been doing this, right? Because
Right.
they get into it, they think they're going to get into it, they're going to go to PCA, they're going to get all these free samples, and then it's crickets out of it. And they don't survive because, the industry's smart. These manufacturers, they test you. when I first came out, and I'm sure the same with you, who are you? What are you doing? Okay. What is your thing? And they're going to test you. All right. And you're going to prove that you have passion. You're going to prove that you have sustainability. You're going to prove that you have the ability to continue to do this. And you're doing it in good faith for everything that you've received from the industry. And if you don't do that, the industry is going to go, you're done. We're not going to do business with you because you're not really giving the industry what they're giving you. And you got to give it back.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
got to
Yeah,
work
that's for
hard at
sure.
this.
No,
You know,
there's no doubt about that. You're right.
the hours you spend, the hours I spend doing what I do is more passion than it is anything else. Everything else is a bonus, but the passion has to show. So, and you've got great passion. You guys have shown that. So I applaud you for everything you've done.
Appreciate that.
So,
Thank you. It's nice of you to say.
well, I think we've run into the 2 hour mark, which is one of the
Yeah.
longer shows we've done. I had a feeling
Wow.
this is going to go a little longer because you got two media guys talking about cool media stuff, things that we do for a living, okay, and have fun at doing what we're doing. I'm going to give you the last word.
Oh, good. Well, I appreciate you having me on. You said a minute ago. I also appreciate seeing, all the other media guys, and I know how much work this is. I know I'm really thankful that, me and Jordan are able to work together as a father-son team. It's great. Hopefully, I don't know, 20, 30 years from now, people look back and say, man, that was a lot of fun. Those dojo guys really, we had some fun times back then, hopefully people appreciate all the effort we put in. We really do this, 24/7, it's just, the amount of effort we put in is crazy, but I don't really feel like I'm working. I love it. I love the community. I love the cigar industry. I love what we do. So we're super excited about that. Hopefully people appreciate it back. I think they do. And we appreciate you guys as well too. And thank you so much for having me on your show, brother. It really means a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you. And on the point of the passion and what we're doing, the really cool thing is because it's all out there. When I'm off the planet, my kids and my grandkids can always come back and see Papa Jimmie doing what Papa Jimmie loved for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
Right?
right. Yeah.
It's a complete diary of my cigar life sitting right in front of us, and you too, the same
Right.
thing.
That's a good point.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so that's our show tonight. I appreciate everybody that's been watching. It's been a good show. I've been watching the stuff coming in. I'm sorry I didn't get all the comments that people asked or commented on, but we were having a great conversation. We'll see what happens next week. I'm going to line somebody up for next week. And with that, this show is a wrap.